Welcome back to D1 Extra. I'm Kristen Eargle. As Maryland conducts their search for the next athletic director, we bring in Taylor Lyons from the Baltimore Sun. Taylor, you have a front row seat to what's going on right now, but let's take a broad scope look at this. From your perspective, what are some of those qualities you believe Maryland needs the most as this next athletic director will lead in a very pivotal time in college athletics?
Yeah, no doubt. I think Maryland could really use someone with Maryland connections, Maryland ties, whether that's an alumni, someone who worked in the athletic department previously, I think would go a long way in kind of re energizing this fan base that's looking for some sort of stabilization at that position.
The transfer portal, NIL, revenue sharing on its way, reshaping college athletics as we know it. We talk about it every single day. So, what strategies do you think Maryland should implement this new AD to remain competitive, specifically in those areas in the Big Ten?
Yeah, obviously fundraising is big in college athletics now, whether that's NIL, raising dollars that way, or we're going to see starting next football season, the revenue sharing becoming instituted and how to kind of navigate that. So you'd like to see a new AD with experience and a proven track record of being able to do that. I think what Maryland is going to have to do is decide if they want to be a football school or a basketball school and where they want to devote those resources to. That was something the former men's basketball coach Kevin Willard talked a lot about, that he felt he didn't have those resources available to him. But then Maryland came out after Willard left, and they said, we offered Willard a contract that would have given him one of the biggest revenue sharing budgets in the Big Ten. Now, obviously, in this kind of salary cap where it's $20.5 million, that money has to come from somewhere, likely would have been football. So if men's basketball has one of the highest revenue sharing budgets, football probably has one of the lowest revenue sharing budgets in the Big Ten. So I think the next, over these next few months for Maryland, they're just going to have to decide if they want to be a football school where obviously, that sport brings in the most money, or a basketball school, probably their best path to being nationally relevant, winning a national championship.
Financial challenges you talked about a little bit that Terrapins Athletics are facing. How can a new director of athletics ensure long-term stability?
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying before, like just being a Maryland person, being, reaffirming that they want to be at Maryland, they want to rebuild Maryland. Damon Evans said something before he left back in January, I believe, that the department was going to take on, I think he said $25 million in new expenses once revenue sharing becomes instituted starting, this summer, if everything's passed, obviously. But they're going to need someone who can stabilize that, kind of right the ship there. It's no secret that Maryland's kind of behind the eight ball in terms of NIL right now. That's not to say they're broke. Obviously, they just put together a Sweet 16 team in men's and women's basketball. But I think Maryland will definitely be looking for someone who can kind of stabilize, especially as they kind of navigate this new Big Ten too, and staying relevant in this new Big Ten with the four new teams we saw. This past year has been the first year that stability will be key for the next athletic director for sure.
Okay, biggest opportunity and maybe the biggest risk for Maryland in the next 5 years.
I mean, the biggest risk, I think I'll start with the negative side, I guess. The biggest risk is that they kind of just become irrelevant in this new Big Ten landscape. I think football, unfortunately, is already kind of trending that way. And men's basketball, like I've said, it is their best path to winning a national championship, I believe, at least in the revenue sports. So the biggest risk there is becoming irrelevant in those two sports in the Big Ten, and just having the Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State continue to exceed you in football, but then also maybe some of them and some of the other schools start to pass you in basketball too.
Taylor, what are you thinking in terms of timeline on when we may see the next AD?
Everyone I've talked to, there's no finalist for the job yet. People I've spoken to have said, there a lot of candidates haven't even been reached out to. This process is not close to wrapping up. It's evolving. There's going to be some names that we haven't heard that are thrown in there. I would not be shocked if the eventual hire is not one of the four names that we previously reported as candidates. Just to say, it's an evolving process. It's very early in the process. And like 6 to 8 weeks, late May, early June kind of timeline.
Looking forward, where could a great leader take Maryland?
I think Maryland has the potential to be one of the most successful athletic departments in the Big Ten if everything's run well. And look at football, like I was just saying, they haven't been relevant over the past 5-6 years in the Big Ten, but I think they have all the capabilities to get there. I mean, you'll get the recruiting footprint in the DMV. The Baltimore, the DC market's huge money wise. So I think they have an opportunity to be relevant in football. And then basketball, like we were saying, that's their best path at competing for championship. And you can do that in the Big Ten. Like Kevin Willard just showed, Maryland is not far removed from having a nationally relevant men's basketball program. So I think the future could be bright in Maryland. It's just going to take the right person to kind of steer the ship.
Taylor, thank you so much for your time and insight, and we'll continue following your stories on the Baltimore Sun.
Yep. Thank you, Kristen.